Hey, welcome to a Northern Monkeighs battle recap. This is kind of the first one of these videos I'm trying. It's kind of in the style of the old like Warhammer Fantasy videos that you used to see, where it's a bunch of images. It's not like a live battle report or anything like that, but it's just something chill to put on in the background. I've recently picked up a Votann army and have been kind of painting it slowly, getting it ready, and my mate who's got Orks, we've been just like having slowly larger and larger games. So I think this is our third game. It's one each going into this one, so see how it ends. But yeah, it's just a fun little small points game, but hopefully there's lots to learn about Votann, about Orcs, and just about sort of getting the most out of your models on the game. So yeah, hope people enjoy this kind of content, and if you do, leave a like. So yeah, I found this charming little piece of art online here. This is like what Votann used to look like many, many moons ago. I think it's just cool seeing things like the way that Warhammer's come with images like this, you know. There's some stuff that's still recognizable for the Votann, the little helmeted guys, the knee pads, the sort of axe, and it's all very iconic dwarf imagery. And then you've got the Orcs, they've got a banner that looks straight out of like the Gloomspite Git's Age of Sigmar book. Yeah, I thought that was quite cool, and it's good to know that these two have been, they've had beef since the dawn of the game, so it's cool. Speaking of the lists, this is sort of I'm building towards like 1,000 point Votann list. It will basically be this army, but with an extra unit of Hearthguard slapped on. The Carl leads sort of a 5-man squad of Hearthkin, who are quite a technical little unit with all the little bits of war gear they can get. Um, they split up into two different 5-man Hearthkin squads by the Sagittar, which is very helpful. The Sagittar being a decent vehicle in and of itself, as you'll see in the game, is good for having this ability to split your squads up, get those sticky objectives all over the place. Yeah, I think it's a cool little Votann army, and it's getting there. I obviously lacking sort of in heavy firepower, but sort of makes up for that. There's the E-champs and things running around, and obviously the Sagittar has its casino cannon on top, which is a sustained hits D3 las cannon, which is always makes me laugh. The Orcs, they've got the Warboss in Mega Armor. He's riding around in the battle wagon with his two bodyguards. There's another Warboss with 10 boys. Just a really solid unit to have. They hit incredibly hard, especially on the War. You've got Snickrot, who, wow, I did not know that guy's data sheet was so good. I've never seen him played like anywhere, and I am really surprised because, as you'll see in this game, he's a bit of a menace. Got boys, burner boys, mega knobs, some death copters, for some potentially to have some shooting. It's always a bit of a dodgy proposition with Orcs. And then, of course, the battle wagon with the kill cannon. I really like this unit, and you'll see it looks awesome in the game. So, in terms of deployment, the Orcs just kind of front loaded everything onto the line, trying to use cover and line of sight blocking stuff as best they could. But more or less everything was just ready to get stuck in. They don't want to get whittled down by the Votann. Um, they had the battle wagon and their copters on the back line just to pop out and shoot. They've got, I mean, between the movement 12 and the 24-inch rockets, they've got a fairly decent range, so they can play it safe and then pop out to shoot. With the Votann, I've noticed with the Sagittarius and the bikes, you get a decent amount of access to scout, like way more than you do in most normal armies. So I've been trying to sort of use that in this way to like out deploy my opponent, where it's like, oh yeah, put this unit down, but it's actually not going to be there. Like it looks like it's out in the open. So it's a cool tactic. I use the Sagittarius to try and give a bit of cover to that E-champ, who just had to be chilling out on his own, which may end terribly for him. I guess we'll find out. Um, but yeah, that was the kind of the deployment. I got the berserkers out there as a bit of bait. The Carl in the Sagittar unit on the home objective, and the mission meant that we couldn't deploy infiltrators on objectives. So I kind of, because of that, and because I'm scared of them just getting crushed straight away, I put the Jaegers, the little scout Votann guys, who were kind of cool, put them right at the back there just to keep them safe. So the Orcs went first, and everyone knows where this is going. It was war o'clock. Um, just straight in there, everything just rushing up. Some stuff like the Mega Knobs you can see in the back there, they staged. The battle wagon and the copters both moved up and just fired everything at the Sagittar, and I think did a grand total of 2 damage between everyone. So yeah, not good orc shooting there, but when has it ever been? However, thanks to the advance and charge, the orc war boss and his squad of boys made it into the berserkers. Just zooming out there, and the berserkers were kind of there to die. Those poor undead lads. And now on the other flank, the boys moved up to target the Jaegers, and I sort of used their reactive move to get away, but rolled a 1. However, thankfully the orcs failed the charge, so they just kind of ended up with the two units kind of staring at each other, which was pretty funny. So the orc warboss and his boys made it in on the flank, and absolutely the warboss just went on his own. And I think between Wah and his own ability, I think the guy had something like 9 attacks, maybe 10 attacks, and he on his own just completely wiped out the berserkers. The feel no pain meant nothing to him, as he just yeah, he went ham and killed them all. I got 3 fight on deaths off with the axes, and I thought, oh yeah, this is a good chance to, hit them back. Now, I debated between the sweeps and the strikes, and this is something I'm still not. I don't have a lot of armies that kind of have this mechanic, so I was a bit not unsure what to do. I went with the sweeps on the logic that the strikes might suffer quite badly into the 5+ invuln, even though it's 3s and 3s, but yeah, anyway, it went terribly because I got a lot of hits, however, rolled like 2 wounds, and I think he failed like 1 invuln. So the berserkers kind of died for, I'd say they died for nothing, but really they traded well because on their turn, so the orcs had killed the berserkers pretty easily, but then the Carl came out, the E-champ came out, and there's another unit of Hearthkin like providing suppressing fire from off screen. And between all of that and the Sagittars bolt cannon, they just completely obliterated the squad of boys, charging into them. I think the impact hits from the E-champ ended up being what like finished everyone off. So yeah, that was pretty good. It wiped out the Orc War boss and his squad and left this flank quite bare. However, there was the looming presence of the battle wagon. However, Sagittar shot at the battle wagon and just completely bounced off it, no real effect. So I found the Sagittars cool, but very, very swingy in terms of its combat. So the Orc Warboss in Mega Armor, obviously seeing the other Warboss get wiped out, decides, well, that guy's an idiot, it's my turn to get stuck in. So he steps out of the battle wagon, uses even though he's only got a pretty slow movement himself of about 5, the extra sort of 3 inches that you get to deploy out of the battle wagon, it gave him a decent charge. I think he needed like a 5 or a 6 into the Sagittar. So he did that, peppered off some shots that didn't do anything, and the battle wagon moved on to the other flank to kind of support that. I think the burner boys had been entirely wiped out by the other squad of Hearth Guard over that side, so the battle wagon was needed over there. Boss came over to get stuck in. However, he sort of maybe perhaps overestimated his own speed because he absolutely whiffed his charge into the Sagittar, which was a real loss. Probably one of the big points of the game because it just kept the Sagittar completely healthy. However, in better news for the Orcs, the Death Copters opened up and just, I think the custom Mega Blaster or whatever it was, just popped the E-champ just completely. So that was a shame for that E-champ, but at least he got to fight with a war boss before he went down. So yeah, this is another thing with Orcs. The battle wagon moved up and it's got like 3. It's got like a lobber and it's got like 3 or 4 big shooters on it and the kill cannon. Fired all off into the Jaegers and I think killed like 1 or 2. And then the shooter boys that are there, they did the same thing, firing into the Jaegers and charging into them, and they barely killed anyone. And I think that's a bit of a condemnation of shooter boys. They're just rubbish compared to normal boys. Like the output of their gun, it doesn't matter that they've given them like 3 shots in rapid fire range now. It's such a nothing amount of attacks compared to the like AP1 melee that they can get. So yeah, orc shooting, unfortunately, just it's nowhere to be found. And the Jaegers don't even have stealth or anything like that built into them. Like if they did have stealth, they'd be immune to orc shooting, I imagine. The Mega Armor knobs, they sort of charged in. So I'd moved up this unit of Hearthguard to blast the burner boys because I didn't want them flaming my Jaegers because their attacks can actually do damage in ranged. However, it then left them vulnerable to the Mega Knobs. The big 3-man unit of Mega Knobs came charging in. I was like, uh-oh, this is trouble. However, turns out these guys have 2 attacks each, and they hit on 4s. It doesn't matter that they're like, they're really good strength, good AP and all that, but it's 2 attacks each hitting on 4s from like it's like over 100 points of models just charging in, and I think they killed 1 guy. Because of course they did. They got like 3 hits and then 2 wounds, and then I passed 1 save, and it's like, oof. And they simply weren't durable enough to stand up to the counter attack from the Votann themselves. So yeah, that was a real. I think this felt like the real sort of turning point for the battle, where it started to get a bit desperate for the Orks. They'd failed the charge in the middle. The Deathcopters, like I said, they killed the E-Champ, but it's a sort of a hollow victory. And these Jaegers are even sort of somehow managing to fend off a whole squad of boys and the battle wagon. It's just really, really not good for the Orks at this point. However, there was one shining light for the Orks. Ironically, like Gandalf coming over the hill, Snickrot. This guy, so he's a lone operative. He'd sort of deployed, infiltrated into the board, so he's fairly immune to shooting from where he was. So turn 1, this guy just sort of teleports across the battlefield, completely into my backlines. Runs in, starts killing Hearthkin, and I thought, well, okay, maybe I can deal with this guy. The bikes, the 2 bikes, I think one of them had been killed by some shooting from the burners, perhaps, and this guy. That I thought, oh, I've got my guys with the railgun, I've got my, all this to go on. I'll deal with Boss Snickrot. So the bikes opened up. Between his built-in stealth and me not having any judgment tokens on him, the bikes just completely failed to do any real meaningful damage, even with some good rolls. This guy still has a 5-up invuln. So yeah, I failed to kill Boss Snickrot. It was a bit of a shotgun rounds went flying. I think that might be the only thing that hurt him, was a single shotgun pellet. The rest of the attacks just completely failed to have any impact at all. Now this was quite cool. I thought this was a really good point and sort of moment to observe on. I mean, you can see in the background the Orc boy is getting wiped out by the E-Champion and his squad back there. But the Snickrot was just dancing around in my backfield, and it pulled the Pioneers back, and it really kind of threatened this whole flank back here. And having a deep strike threat, the Votann, I think everything was just on the board. So I know their bikes can go back into reserves, but they ended up not being able to, as you'll see. But having a unit that can just threaten your opponent's backfield, I think is really important in the game. And Boss Snickrot does that pretty well. His attacks are twin linked. So I looked at them and was like, oh yeah, they're strength 6, it's quite good, but they're not so crazy. But then, twin linked, all these sort of shenanigans he can do, is just really nice. So having seen the last of the boys get wiped out by the E-Champion and his squad, the battle wagon decides it's going back towards the centre of the battlefield. There's better pickings there. It shoots at the Sagittar to, unfortunately, little effect. But I'd moved up the Sagittar to kind of stop the war boss from easily being able to get into the unit of Hearthkin and my Carl that were down here. They'd just been like blasting the Deathcopters. And Deathcopters are pretty durable. Like, there's 12 wounds between the whole squad, high toughness and stuff. But this squad, they've got the high las auto rifle, I think, so they're getting like 6 shots off that. They've got all their iron guns and the Volkite from the Carl and a plasma pistol. With a +1 to hit that you basically get for the Carl, being able to judge a unit that he sees. Yeah, it was pretty cool, and all the lethal hits just meant that, because it's all AP2 on the AP1 on the guns. Yeah, between shooting and melee, they just did they handily dealt with this unit of Deathcopters, despite them being relatively tough and not sort of the ideal target for them. I moved the Sagittar up to kind of shoot at the battle wagon and the Mega Knobs. It didn't do very well against them again, but it did sort of move block the war boss, stop him crushing my Carl. And that's kind of cool for Votann. I sort of noticed, like, oh, not only do I get to move block with his Sagittar, but also when he inevitably kills it, I thought, then I get a judge token on him. And I think I put 1 judge token on them with the Carl, and then I'd hope, oh, they'll kill the Sagittar. They've got 2 judgment tokens, and now I'm +1 to hit and wound against them. So that was pretty cool. Um, However, the war boss and his not mega knobs charged in, and again because of that low volume of attacks and just some plain bad rolling, to be honest, they reduced the Sagittare down to 2 wounds and didn't kill it. It was really like, oof, oh no. So yeah, this is something I've noticed in 10th edition is, and loads of people have said like this isn't hot off the press news. Vehicles are just so tough. With its toughness 10 on this thing, the Mega Knobs with their power claws were wounding it on 5s, like the War Boss was wounding it on 4s, I think. Like, and they did 6 damage to it. It was quite respectable, but it just failed to have any real, like, they just couldn't crack this Sagittar in a turn. And that's just really rough for them. Like, this big, powerful unit. And I know people like in 9th edition, people complain that vehicles were too fragile and like, oh, it's an infantry game because you can't, everything's so fragile, you can't, a vehicle just gets killed by multi-melters. But now in 10th, it's like, oh, no, can't kill a vehicle now. It's like, oh, maybe Games Workshop maybe just need to, maybe in 11th edition, they can just turn the dial back a tiny bit. And maybe that'll make people happy, but I doubt it. So yeah, just got this shot blown up here, just to say, look how cool this war boss looks. All the mega knobs are kind of weirdly, they're like kit bashed from like metal mega knobs, old like new plastic knobs, new mega knobs. Like they're all such a sort of spooky, weird, bespoke looking unit, and they all have these sort of Death Skulls banners on their back. I really like them. The banners are especially like sort of Turnip 28 sort of style or grungy. Really like it. They wouldn't look out of place in like some John Blanche art, these guys. And this War Boss model, I think most people, is one of the best conversions of all time. This is the old Gazgul model, and then this is the Orc, like that Iron Orcs banner pole, that head stuck onto that model. It fits perfectly. It looks absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so the war boss, however, he got another judgment token on him from the Carl, so his squad was up to 2 judgment tokens, and uh, the squad of Votann here just completely lit them up. I think they killed one of the orcs in shooting, charged in, killed another one in melee, and hurt the war boss. Crushed a couple of guys back, but he doesn't have a great volume of attacks. Both war bosses, I think, only had like 4 attacks apiece. Even like hitting on 2s, it's not great. It really isn't. So, I mean, I know they get more in the WAR, but I don't know. I feel like it'd be cool if Orc War bosses maybe hit a bit harder, but I mean, they can cost more points, obviously, but I don't know. They crushed a few guys, but this was really cool. It was nice to see the Warlords scrapping, even in the shadow of the truck. So yeah, we moved into the final sort of stages of the game, fighting over the center here. The wagon finally put his guns to use and just blasted the Sagittar, finally killing it, which I think was more out of perhaps more tactical choices to be firing at. But the Sagittar, after the failed charge from the war boss and then the claws not bringing it down, the wagon just had enough and rinsed the Sagittar with the shots. The Megaboss killed a couple more Halfkin, but again, that low volume of attacks just meant that, like, even though it was like 2s and 2s, you're gonna lose 1 or 2 dice through there, and then the squad, because of the Carl, it's really cool. The Carl gives his squad a 5-up invuln with his war gear, so the squad got to sort of just live through the war boss's attacks. I think it ended up that the Carl and the leader of the squad, I can't remember what he's called, like the Hesir or something like that. They both hacked the Mega Boss down together, which is quite cool. I always deploy the squad like this. I don't think it's a very like sound choice to spend, have the Carl leading this unit, but I don't know. Him and the Carl and the Hesir, in my mind, they're best buds. Yeah, they do a really good job, and they hack down the war boss together. And yeah, that was it. This was sort of the end of the game. The half guard came storming over from the other objective after making an advance last turn. They move up this turn, and that pretty much seals the game because the wagon just gets peppered with Volkites and smashed with fists, and unfortunately for the Orcs, doesn't get to explode. Very sad. And yeah, so that sealed the game. The Orcs were out of resources. Boss Nikrot was dancing around on the other flank, but his ballad came to an end after he'd killed the pioneers. However, because of that, he then got a judgment token on him, sort of mitigated his stealth a little bit. and the rail rifle domed him, just blew him to bits, which is quite good. But I mean, I like to think the rail rifle fired and blew a cardboard cutout to pieces, and Snickrot slinked away to cause trouble somewhere else. But yeah, general thoughts. We were talking about it. We thought Votann were really fun. I liked how sort of they don't. I think my friend was saying he likes when he was growing up playing Orks, he was a lot of like Necrons and Guard that he was playing against, so it was all just getting hoovered up by them. But the Votann, they kind of have to get in close to use their firepower, which I've noticed all their guns tend to be, 24 range, and you're like, ooh, generous. So yeah, they're getting close, and they actually have to get into a scrap, which is quite cool. But still, the Orcs, I mean, they had copters, they had this battle wagon. You think, oh, even at this low points value, it's a decent amount of shooting, but sadly, it sort of just it meant that the Votann very much had dictating the pace of the game, and even stuff like Snickrot, like threw a wrench in the works. But I think the Orcs just couldn't recover from the failed charges, which is a shame because in past editions they just used to have built-in reroll, advance, and charge, and that was really really good for them. Like it just, I don't know. I've played Orcs myself in previous editions, and it was just great to have like that reliability to them. Um, Now they just maybe their new detachment, their Christmas detachment, that'll have it in, but I guess we'll see. So yeah, totally different format this time, but thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. I sort of just trying loads of different type of content. We've got sort of interviews, we've got unit datasheet reviews. Might do a few reviews of the new detachments if I have time. And yeah, just thought I'd do this little battle recap. If anyone remembers, I'd love to find the channel again. There used to be a YouTuber who played Bretonnians in Warhammer Fantasy, and he'd do like these sort of pictures talking through like a slideshow of the games. I always thought those were really informative. So if anyone knows that channel, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, yeah, have a good day. Bye.